Lucia Ruiz is lucky to be alive. She survived an ETA bomb when she was 10 years old. Lucia lived with her family in a barracks, where her father worked as a police officer.
This is where the police barracks were in 1987. The terrorist group ETA blew the whole thing up with a car bomb containing 250 kilos of explosives. It killed 11 people and injured 88.
35 years later, Lucia still has to live with the pain of the attack.
My mother can move around very little because of that. Seeing her reminds me every day what happened. It's difficult to heal because the subject is still very current.
Investigators have reopened the inquiry into the attack. ETA's leader at the time, Josu Tenera, was arrested in France after 16 years on the run. A Spanish judge is seeking his extradition to determine his exact role in the Zaragoza bombing.
He needs to come to court to answer for what he did as the intellectual authority behind the attack. That won't erase the injuries, but he needs to face justice because he deserves that and because it's an important step for us.
ETA announced the end of its arms struggle more than 10 years ago. But there are still 350 attacks attributed to the organisation that have never been resolved. That accentuates the pain of the families of ETA's 850 victims. And there are still divisions in Basque society. In Bilbao, separatists are joined at this demonstration by 200 family members of ETA prisoners.
How is your son? He's still in prison like all the rest.
These demonstrators criticise the prison policy applied by Spanish government since 1989. Convicted ETA prisoners were kept in jails outside their home regions to make it harder to organise.
Out of 174 people jailed in Spain, half of them are still jailed outside the Basque country.
Maida Vizo is the wife of a former ETA member. Sentenced for 3 assassinations, he's been in jail for the last 21 years. She believes her husband should be considered a political prisoner.
They were in prison for political reasons and because of a political conflict. In fact, we're asking above all for our loved ones to be freed. There's no chance of a really harmonious society if we haven't overcome these resentments which remain after the conflict.
Most of these demonstrators vote for Bildu, the Basque separatist party. Some of the party's members backed or belonged to ETA. Bildu is an ally of the socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, who relies on their votes to maintain his minority government, a reliance which angers many Spaniards.
Unacceptable for the Prime Minister to speak about a front against the right without accusing the successors of ETA of all their crimes and of their lack of respect for the Constitution.
But Patxi López, a Basque socialist deputy, says Bildu's presence in Parliament is an advance, proof that a consensus is emerging in society about the recent past.
They have to choose between bombs or votes. They're here thanks to the representation their votes give them. The more they take part in political life, the more they will realise that there was never any justification for violence in a democracy.
The Basque region, that desire to build bridges despite the terror of the past, is personified by Maixabel Lassa. Her husband was a former Basque socialist politician killed by an ETA commando in 2000. A memorial was built on the mountainside. Maixabel pays regular visits to it.
Having a concrete place to remember a person is very important.
This stone bears the name Juan Marí Jauregui, who served his community despite the threat to his life.
Everything they did was in vain. The only thing they managed to do was to cause a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. We need to talk about it and tell that story.
Maixabel was one of the first victims of ETA to agree to meet her husband's assassins. They asked for her forgiveness.
This photo was taken when Ibon Etxezarreta, one of those who took part in Juan Marí's killing, came here. He asked me when we met for the first time if he could come to one of the tributes to him. I said, for me, that wouldn't be a problem.
That restorative justice has helped Maixabel move forward and make peace with the past. Her story was told in a film that came out this year, a box office success that shows the need society has to reflect on its history. 500,000 Spaniards have seen it. Maixabel hopes telling her story will help ensure history never repeats itself.